As a creative person, when things aren't going well, it can be really easy to want to quit. But I want to talk to you about why we shouldn't and ways that maybe we can keep going when things are falling apart. Welcome to Storywise. I'm Eric, and I want to introduce this new concept to the channel. If you've spent any time on my channel and you look back at the history of this channel, I am a coach. This is something I use, storytelling and creativity, as a way to heal and grow and understand yourself. And I've been doing a lot more book reviews and literature as I try to become a published author. But I still have this part of me that always wants to go back to creative resiliency, to invest in creatives like myself, because I know that struggle very well. That's why I started a writers group, and that's why I want to have some of these videos, whether you want them or not. You can skip over them when they come up, but I want to create a conversation between creatives, because it's a very wonderful thing to be. But it can be very lonely and isolating and scary at times because we don't quite understand sometimes what that creativity means for us. So I do want to give you a few things to consider, not to go incredibly deep into any one of these, but to set the standard, set the table for what these videos will be like, because I am exploring a few different paths that I want to bring into this channel, into this conversation. First, I want to define to you what I believe creativity is. Creativity is seeing things as they could be, not as they are. This is the foundational element we have to understand about creativity. If you want to think about it as an artist, it makes a lot of sense. I see a blank wall, but I see this scarring in the drywall, and it looks like a forest. It looks like a bird, and now I paint this scarred wall into that of a bird flying over the ocean. That's creativity. In writing, it can be like seeing this hole in the ceiling where the smoke detector or light goes, and there's these little wires still sticking out, and seeing it as, what if those are fingers? Like some kind of house monster thing, and the fingers were sticking out and trying to crawl through, like what would that scene be? And now all of a sudden you have this whole narrative idea. It can be seeing your pain and trying to listen to what lesson it's trying to teach you, and then walking away from that pain, having transmuted it into something that is creative instead of destructive. It can also be looking into a closet and seeing the clutter and imagining and seeing what it could be if it were organized, and then creating a system that organizes your closet, your kitchen, your home. It's looking at the budget and understanding how we can save here so we can earn more here and save more there. This is all creative energy. But to be able to be creative, we have to be open. And when we are open, we are vulnerable. A lot of times people want to shut down creativity with these walls that prevent them from that vulnerability, because sometimes when you're creative, you're wrong. And that could be one of the bigger things that we want to avoid, is being wrong and being judged because we're wrong. So the first point I want to talk about is, it's not that you're afraid of being wrong. It's you're afraid of being judged, because when we're judged, we're cast aside. We're seen as being not welcome in the group. And when we're not welcome in the group, we're fearing death. That's the primal urge, because we are meant to be in community. And if we're isolated in the wild, you're more likely to die. We are not in the wild. I'm in my basement, in fact, and I am still alone, but I have my children upstairs. I have my wife at work. I have my community, people I can call, so I am not isolated. But if I start to create even this video, the fear that I have about making videos for the channel is not that no one will view it and no one will agree with it. It's that they'll tell me I'm wrong. They'll tell me that my expression is poor, is trite, is wasted, or is attention seeking or something like that. And I've had that happen in the past, and it hurts. It's not that I'm wrong. It's that people judge me and don't want me here. That's the fear. And as a creative, you're more likely to experience that because you are open, you are vulnerable, because vulnerability is a prerequisite to creating quality work. There's a difference between sharing everything and sharing your creativity. You don't want to share and bear all of your wounds to the world. You want to share those scars that you've learned from and have been able to transmute into something creative, of artwork, a poem, whatever it is that you choose to express yourself, if you're sharing it publicly, that is, or it's something you're sharing for yourself. That being said, the next thing I want to talk about is the resilience aspect. It is important, no matter if you're creative or not, to have resilience. This is the ability to bounce back. This is about showing up when it's difficult. And we get really focused on this. A lot of self-help people, a lot of mind mastery groups and things like that, and mindset shifts are all rooted in showing up when things are hard. And I agree with that, but I think it's overemphasized. At least for a creative, I believe this to be true because I've experienced it. It's not about shifting your mindset. It is about embracing it and acknowledging it as truth and then gathering data. So as a creative, we want to live in the magical. We don't want these confines of black and white thinking. We don't want the cold world of stone and fact. We want magic to exist. We want to open ourselves to these creative channels so that we can have our creative ideas, so we can have that aha moment that I know I love so much, solving something simple and it just all clicks together, especially in a novel. I get super thrilled. And it comes from all over because I am open to it. I've been inspired by a drip of water once that all of a sudden I'm like, that's it. And if I'm not open, it's just a drip of water. So as a creative, you're likely to shut down and then just see the drip of water as a drip of water, not the solution to the novel you're writing, the painting you're trying to create. And as the hero of our story, the protagonist of our story, my philosophy is that we have to define what that means. We get really confused with heroics and being awesome in life as being a conquering hero, being impermeable to pain. But simply stated, that is not true because you don't get that opportunity all the time. I was called a hero for my actions in combat. You know how many times I've been in combat in my life? Not that many. Less than 10. You know how many days I've lived my life? A lot more than 10. So the majority of life, I have not been living up to the tenets of a hero as I was told was heroic in overseas combat. So to be a daily hero, to be the protagonist, the lead character in your own life story, not the main character syndrome, but to be a really good story writer of your own life, you got to do three things. You have to lean into adversity, you have to face discomfort, and you have to do what you must, not what you want. This is what resiliency is. You're facing these things that are uncomfortable. You're dealing with your adversity that you're faced with. Sometimes that can be as simple as my body hurts, so I can't go on my run. I can't work out. Do I have to avoid it? Do I have to address the underlying issue that I'm facing? Do I have to change the way I eat, change the way I train? I'm not getting to the writing room because I'm feeling bad. What do I need to do to show up for that? These are adversities. It's just anything that is in your life that is holding you back as a limitation. You have to find those things to be resilient and address them, sit with them honestly, and then address them. You have to face discomfort. I mean, it's not always nice. Sometimes I'm tired when I have to do stuff, and sometimes you're tired when you have to do stuff, but you can still do it. And with creativity, you got to go and get it out. And sometimes that's only, for me, typing 50 words or reviewing the last paragraph that I wrote and, changing something because I know it reads wrong. It means staying connected and then doing what I must, not what I want. Sometimes I don't want to write, but I still pull out the laptop and I still type away. Sometimes a lot of times I don't want to do any chores, but I have to do those too because you have to have this base foundation of life routine to build the creative routines off of. I get up early so that I can read. I give myself an hour of reading in the morning and hopefully an hour of reading in the evening so I can read for 2 hours a day. At the end of that, I'm going to write, and then at the end of that, I'm going to work out. I don't always feel like doing that, and I don't always do it, but most of the time I'm doing it pretty faithfully. So resilience isn't about perfection, but so many people, especially creatives I've worked with and coached in the past, as soon as they fail, it's all over. And they've told me such, that they feel that they've let someone down because they couldn't live up to the tenets that they were preaching, that the commitments that they had committed to. Somehow it was a sign of being an adult to follow through on everything you commit to. There are extenuating circumstances. We should learn through our failure not to overcommit. Yes, that is part of resilience, is understanding what you can take and what you can't, what you can do and what you can't, because it's really intoxicating. It's sugary to overcommit because it feels really good to be relied on. It feels really good to say I can achieve and create this piece in this amount of time. And then when you fail, you're just a failure. You don't see that you overcommitted. I overcommitted when I did a documentary once. I could not do it, and it hurt people because I was both a mentor in that space and a documentary filmmaker, and I leaned heavier into the one versus the other. I became a mentor to a smaller group, not everybody, and a filmmaker on the side. So I didn't have the time. I didn't understand the environment, so I couldn't commit fully, and I screwed up, and I own that, but still I had people recoil on me, and it was bad. I felt awful for it, but I learned something about overcommitment. But I wasn't going to kill myself to try and make good on every promise I made. Some of it I couldn't even because damage had already been done. But I can change what I do going forward. So resiliency is as much about showing up right now, but also addressing those failures and figuring out what we need to shore up so we don't make them again in the future. Thereby, we don't get ourselves in those situations where we overcommit and potentially fail. And also showing up when inspiration isn't there. I heard someone say that I only write when inspiration strikes, but lucky for me, inspiration always strikes between 9 o'clock and noon. That just happens to be the writing time that they sit down and write every day, and they force themselves to be inspired. I don't subscribe to that exactly, but I understand it. What I understand it more as a creative for resiliency is even when inspiration isn't there, you have to show up for yourself. Sometimes that means, as a creative, saying your inspiration is gone, you can still create, and maybe it won't be great, but you're keeping those muscles moving. But maybe you're not creating, and then you feel really bad. You're keeping those muscles moving, that channel open, and maybe it's really not something you're going to share with someone, but part of creativity is doing it for yourself. So you're showing up to express something, or you're showing up to encourage yourself to say, this is okay. Just give it a day, and then we'll readdress it tomorrow. But you're not bad. You're not underqualified. You're not run out of ideas. That is not a thing. But it's something I believed for a long time, and it killed me because I felt I was a one-trick pony. But now I realize there's a constant stream of ideas, just not all of them are going to make it onto the page. Not all of them are going to be loved by everybody. So creative resilience is about being committed to yourself, to your unique voice, to your experience, and realizing that everything we experience can be then recycled as a seed of inspiration. A lot of times life has to progress, failures have to mount for you to understand the lessons so that you can transmute them into a story. And unfortunately, that just takes time. So showing up for yourself as a creative is as much about, getting in there and getting it done when you maybe don't want to, as much as it is realizing that we're playing the long game here. Sometimes stories aren't ready to be finished because you haven't lived enough life for them to make sense, for them to have the solution, because you're just making it up. And the more you connect creatively through truth, through your specific truth, and yeah, you can take some from other people, but the more you're personally connected with your creation, the more resilience you'll have because it's real to you. And the last thing I want to talk about with this topic about resilience and sort of where I'm going with some of these talks, creatives struggle more. That's what I've seen in life. The more I've coached, the more I've assessed my own journey, the more I realize it is true. People look at creatives as too sensitive, as too easily hurt, and that's because they're so open. I don't believe we should be punished or chastised for being open because creatives create an experience that the non-creatives, and I'll qualify that saying everyone is creative, remember, but these are the professional creatives, the ones that are open to creation of art specifically and writing and movies and poetry and paintings. People look at them and judge them and say they're too sensitive, too open. But those same people are ingesting art, unaware that the same people that they might look down on as saying they're too sensitive are creating, through that sensitivity, that openness, that vulnerability, the very art that inspires them, the songs, the movies, the books, the poetry, the whatever, the symphony that is directly impacting their souls, and they're unaware of it. So if they were to get the creatives to toughen up and close off, they would lose access to that, and they have no idea. So we have that burden of understanding that our lot in life as a creative person is going to create this emotional roller coaster that others are not going to experience. Doesn't mean we're better or worse. It means it's something we have to accept about ourselves. And that's where the resiliency lies, is understanding your experience separate from reality of what it means that the world needs to do for you. This is ownership. This is me getting irritated and upset because of an experience I had or something I saw, and realizing I have to go inside and I have to ask myself, is this my open vulnerability, my creativity, my inability to read social cues in certain situations, or is this legitimate affront? Is this something I need to address? Is this a hill I need to die on? Oftentimes the answer is no. And the more I understand as a creative, I have to be responsible for my own emotional experience, the more I'm able to have that more balanced reaction and separate myself from situations that just aren't good for me. I don't play chess because it makes me so angry, but I have no desire to learn chess. So why would I play the game? With creativity, I get so volatile at different times, but I realize that's just my experience, the way I process emotions and experience stimulus. But I also recognize that when I numb that, I take away the highs and the euphoria that I get from mundane things. People laugh at me because of how excited I get over silly things, but I love that about my brain. I love that experience, and people didn't get it. My father, the last year of his life, he finally got it. He never understood why I didn't just work harder or do this and that and why I was so sensitive. And then the last year of his life, he said, "You're different. You experience the world differently than everyone I know." And I don't think I ever gave you credit for that because you've created some really cool and amazing things, and I never understood that about you. and I was always hard on you, and I'm sorry. He didn't say I'm sorry, but that's what I heard. So I'm sorry. But in that moment, he acknowledged the fact that my experience of the world was not traditional. It was not normal to him. So he couldn't understand why I couldn't just be like him, and therefore didn't give me the space to be like me. So creative resilience is about giving you space to be like you, separating it from blaming other people and thinking that your emotional experience is fact, because emotions never lie, but they don't always tell you the truth, and you have to learn to be a truth finder. Otherwise, you're going to go on a narrative that's not true, it is false, and get you in a world of hurt. And that's where my coaching, really lives. You've got to be emotionally vulnerable. That's going to open you up to things. So these emotions come in, you have to transmute them, you have to experience and understand them. Otherwise, you won't be able to create from them. There's uncertainty in the creative pursuit. You're not guaranteed anyone's going to like it. And when we have this need for external validation, that's compounded. It hurts more when it's not received. But when we feel that, when we expect people to love what we create and we don't get that love, we are being made aware that we are not resilient, that we're creating for the wrong purpose. We're creating from a place of scarcity where we're trying to make what this person wants versus what's true to us. And that's good to learn. But that external validation will soften over time if you get in groups of people, like my writer's group, that has your best interest at heart and maybe doesn't like your story, but likes your writing and can tell you what you could change. And then what I've also found is sometimes when you're just sharing, you're not getting a response. Sometimes you have to get really comfortable with that lack of response. And once you're comfortable with that over and over again, you can start to realize, well, I'm just creating this because I want to. And then you get the hate comment or the bad thing said, and that hurts. But hopefully it softens and it lessens over time, because you realize that the thing I created that you hated, I created because I care about it. I didn't do it because I needed you to like me. I did it because I needed to do it, because creativity left unexpressed is a poison and it's killing me. And sometimes you realize that you create in silence. You don't create for others to consume. And maybe a lot of the stuff you do create never makes it off of your notebook. It never makes it off of your computer. And that's okay too, because you're still expressing the poison in a productive way. You're not expressing it, but you're getting it out. And creative resilience is all about self-care in that respect, that you're getting out the creativity. Even if no one else is consuming it, you've got to keep the channel open. Otherwise, the final thing is mental health is going to degrade. Anxiety, imposter syndrome, depression, all of these things I've found are a lot harder to have when you're in your creative expression, when you're continuously putting out things. And I'll do it for blocks of time where I'll be creative and then it kind of goes away, because maybe I do need a little outside encouragement. Maybe I do need a little security, and that's okay too. But hopefully that shrinks to a lot smaller, where I get 6 months of creative output without maybe a ton of response. But then I have that kind of dwindling off. I made these cards for a year and was great. But then as soon as I couldn't become businessman, because I'm not a businessman, I need a business partner to take my creativity and run with it. And I realized that, and I'm okay with that finally after 2 years of really struggling with that. Which that's being a little bit glossy there. It's been years that I've struggled with that, 10 years at least. But these last 2 have been really, really hard evidence of that. And I've been able to walk through the fire I needed to walk through to finally get to the comfortable place of, I'm not a businessman. I'm a creative. And I own that. And I know if it ever happens, I'll have a business partner and maybe we'll do some cool stuff. I don't know, but I just have to keep the channel open of creativity and connection. And you'll find your path to that too. But you're going to have those experiences and will want to shut them down. But what anxiety, what depression, what imposter syndrome tells you is 3 different things, depending on what you're experiencing. Anxiety, controlling things that you can't control. And a lot of times that these things will simmer and bubble a lot more when you're not expressing them, when you're not moving your body as well. So getting out walking and exercising in some capacity, making sure your mind is active, but also your body is too. Really important. Mind, body, that balance, both have to be engaged on some level. That will help with anxiety and depression too. Depression is being someone you're not. It is doing something that's not good for you or not doing something that is good for you. And it's sort of this restriction of life into a really, really guaranteed safe environment where you can rehab. That's the design of depression. And to address, what is it that I'm doing that I should stop doing? And what is it that I'm not doing that I should be doing? Or who am I pretending to be that I'm not? And when you get that, you can only solve that through consolidating your world into a little bit. And it's the brain trying to tell you to do that. Unless it's a chemical thing, there are chemical depression. I'm just talking about people who experience despair or a mini depression, not the chemically induced, like you need medication to solve it and to fix it. That's a completely different thing. But everything that is chemical, that is a diagnosable condition, is a an enhanced version of something that our brain does for us naturally to protect us. Imposter syndrome's the same. It's like that depression, but it's like a mix. Can be anxiety or depression, but it usually just manifests in, well, who am I? I'm not good enough. And that's because we're wearing a mask of someone that isn't, or a piece of ourselves that we put on as armor to protect ourselves from the world or from an unloving world. It doesn't serve us anymore, and we're ready to take that off. And when we take off that mask, because we've seen it, we're still wearing a mask, but this is much closer to who we are. And so we have to walk through those thresholds over and over again throughout our life until we're finally at the core of who we are, and then we don't feel like an imposter. Enjoy the stretches where you don't feel like it. But when you do feel like an imposter, recognize that there's something inauthentic being expressed. You've outgrown something about your old self and you're ready to step into the new. It can be an incredibly positive or sad grief kind of moment. It's going to be painful, but it also can be exhilarating when you realize that. So I want to get into these topics. I want to have dialogue with you occasionally. And I want to eventually start a weekly, every other week call. I have a writers group every other week, and then I want to augment that with another, off and on schedule where this week, Thursday, it's the Storywise Resiliency group. Next week, it's Storytellers Writing group. Then it's Storywise Storytellers, and it just jumps that way every Thursday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. I just need to know if people actually want to join me for that. Otherwise, I'll just sit alone on my Zoom, I guess. But I want you to understand that I care about this deeply. This is part of who I am, and I wanted to keep it off this channel. But the more I try to do that, the more I feel like part of who I am. And if I'm trying to do something else, it's because I'm trying to emulate some other booktuber, and that's just not me. And maybe that's not marketable. Maybe it is. I don't know. But I just hope that creatives who maybe don't believe in themselves, who struggle, can find a place, and I can host that place where we can talk about those difficult things so that we can all give ourselves the medicine that is creativity, whether we're professionals or not. If you're creative and you're open, there's just difficulties inherent with that. And I know them pretty well. And I want to be there for you and for each other as we build the resiliency and take pride in the fact that we are creatives and we have something to offer that's unique, that others may never even know is impactful to them, but is. But it's all about us being able to express it. And sometimes we get the benefit of seeing it change someone else's perspective, or they have an experience, and that's wonderful. But like it says in the Bhagavad Gita, we're guaranteed to the right to work, but we're not guaranteed to the fruits of the labor. And as a creative, that is a really powerful statement. You're guaranteed that you get to work, you get to create, but you're not guaranteed that anyone's ever going to see it or care about it. But you did it because it was what you had to do, because you needed it, and hopefully others enjoy it as well, but that can't be our drive. That's it for now. I don't know how often I'll do these, but please let me know if this is something that is helpful for you and you have topics of interest. I'll periodically jump on and do these videos, but I just want to preface it that if you don't like this stuff, please stick around for my book reviews and my more booktube type content. It's going to still be there. This will be probably not nearly as often as my book stuff, an author and different things like that, but it is going to be part of this channel, so I welcome you to join it. See you and let me know if there's topics you want to hear about or struggles you have as a creative that I can address in a video or a Zoom conference call. But I'll see you in the next video, and until next time, journey well, my friends.